Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Boomer Live. As you all know, we've been away for the last 3 days when it comes to cricket, but we were waiting for Virat Kohli's turn. As that's all we could say because we did receive a few messages saying that we are jinxing Virat Kohli's turn. So we decided, so why don't we stay away until Virat Kohli gets his turn? And he did get his turn. So we are back, and the curse is officially broken. And of course, we are here to talk about how the day went about for India and where does this Test match stand in terms of who can get that win on the fifth day, because it's looking like mostly India, Australia's chances are definitely out of the window, one can say so at this point of stage. And also, we'll be looking at the Sri Lanka versus New Zealand test match because that is going to hold the key for India's qualification into the WTC final as well. Welcome, everybody, once again. I have Jaren with me. Jaren, what a day of cricket, because it's been boring, one can say so, throughout the 4 days because there's nothing been happening, right? Because we've been so used to seeing 30 wickets fall in a span of 2 to 3 days, and all of a sudden, in totality, all what we have seen is just 20 wickets fall in 4 days. Now, that's very, very weird.
Yeah, I think it took a lot of what do you say? I think this test match has already gone longer than a lot of. I think two test matches put together at least.
Mhm.
It definitely will break by the end of tomorrow that record of how long two test matches together lasted, the first and second at least. But was it? I think today though you saw the pitch tear up a little bit more. It was not as easy to play today as it was in the past 3 days, but however, I think India were in the driver's seat. You still felt India should have done a little better in terms of the runs that they scored, because I think if you still feel that now draw is a lot more what do you say plausible result. Before, India still had some chance when Akshar Patel and Virat were batting together, but then after Akshar's wicket, which is really a tired shot also, I really wouldn't blame Akshar Patel as well, because it was a very tired shot, and he did play a very good innings. It's possible, but then what happened really was with a little bit of I would say a little bit of confusion, a little bit of scrambling here and there, confusion between whether you have to score or not. And I think if India would have not played or not batted at all today, I think rather if Australia wouldn't have batted at all today, India would have been much happier, because you still wanted a lead of at least 110, I mean, not 110, but around 120, 130 to force Australia to a corner where they have to bat the whole day tomorrow. Now, it is still the same, but you can still argue that, the lead isn't enough, and if Australia, and it's not going to really cause as much of a problem in Australian camp as much as it would have if India had a lead of 150.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because 91 is still a lot of runs. They still
Yeah,
have
of
to
course.
topple over 91, then set a target. Most likely, this is heading towards a draw. That's what a lot of us
Yeah.
will feel. But even there, if there's going to be one winner out of this, it's definitely going to be India, isn't it? Because if India comes tomorrow and decides to pick up like 3 or 4 wickets, or if Australia decides to collapse rather, then the game is definitely on. If Australia are 4 down, 5 down in the first session, then the pressure is going to be humongous on Australia. Even if they're going to take a lead, it's going to be just 60, 70 runs, which is quite possible for India to chase down even in 10 overs. If you give them the last 10 overs or 20 overs to bat, that is quite a possibility, isn't it, Jaren?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what Australia will be worried about. Um, that's what they'll be really concerned about as well. It will also feel like, that Australia will feel a lot hard done as well, because you would say to a large extent that obviously you have to also give you have to also give credence to the fact that India's batting is much longer when it comes to it than Australia's, because India has three spinners, all of whom can bat, and we saw today as well. Akshar again probably been I think he's been the best batsman this tournament. I mean, this series, and that's something so odd to say about a number seven, number eight player, but that's how good this lad has been. And credit to him again, because I think at that point in time you would have felt that with Virat Kohli being the only one there, if India did not have such a long batting order, India wouldn't be in this position of power. It would have been Australia who would have
Yeah.
felt much more confident. But because of Akshar Patel, that game, the momentum really changed then and there. And it's also very tough to score today. I think there's a comment already where Kapil Verma says India scored. India played slowly
I
today.
think I want to take that up, especially because I
Yeah,
felt India scored slowly yesterday, but today India were much better. You talk
I
about
think it's
first
post the
session,
tea
yes.
session that India started playing well. Before that,
No,
I
no,
think, yeah,
lunch session. Post the lunch, India were pretty fast because you know my Bharat just came in and took the ante and it just really changed the
yeah,
entire complexion of the game as well. So I thought India were very good, especially post lunch. Yesterday and today morning is where things were a little tight, and that's also because of various other factors. Australia were very defensive in their lines. They made sure
yeah.
India really strangled. Australia made India earn every run. Now, when we talk about playing quickly in Pakistan, some of the flat decks which we provide to England were able to do it quite well. Here, the ball is not quite coming onto the bat as well, where you can
That's my point.
actually
That's
play with the
exactly what I
line.
was trying to say, Abel. I still felt, India kind of didn't score with a new ball as well, but that's a separate issue altogether. Because I also felt India were the precarious situation where they wanted to make
Yeah,
sure that this partnership between Akshar Patel and Virat Kohli went ahead because Shreyas Iyer wasn't there, and I think if Shreyas Iyer was there in today's game, India would have been totally in the driver's seat. And that question of Kapil Verma would have been answered by Shreyas Iyer. Someone like Shreyas Iyer would have loved to bat on this pitch. In fact, he would have been hoping to get a chance to bat on this pitch. Unfortunate that he's got another recurring injury. We will speak about it obviously after.
yeah.
But I think, as you mentioned so accurately, the ball was very old. We saw even in the Australia's innings, right? When the ball got older and older, Australia struggled to score themselves. And that's why you have to give credit to India as well. Rohit Sharma as well employed a very similar tactic where they were very defensive, made sure Australia earned every run in a similar fashion, same thing that Steve Smith did as well. And that's what you do also on a test match where the pitch isn't doing anything. So you have to give it to Australia in that sense that they did do a very good job. But again, I felt they lacked a second seamer. Cameron Green was not up to the mark, and I don't blame him. I blame him as well. He's not in the squad to be the second bowler. He's here to be at least the third best bowler, not the second. Second seamer, that's probably one thing they missed. But again, that's the luxury that India has because of their bowling all rounders in Ashwin and Jadeja.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Teju says BFC in the finals. Yes, absolutely, my friend. BFC
Oh,
in the finals.
I think
We are.
there was more noise in my room, or rather in Abel's room, than
So
at the
I was,
stadium itself.
yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate to witness all of the games, most of the games this season, and hopefully the final next week in Goa, where Jaren and me might be there in
Yeah,
Bambulim, isn't it? Bambulim, am I pronouncing it right?
Bambalima. Yeah, it's Bambalima.
Bambulim, yes. Hopefully we'll be there. Yes, we are BFC Namauru, Bengaluru. Who are we? BFC, of course. Yeah, I'll take Kapil's question now. When the pitch was bowling friendly, everyone complained, and now it's batting friendly, everyone is complaining. Indian public can't be happy. I mean, he's right. I mean, that's something which we had an elongated debate about on the day one, right? How we are so unhappy with that pitch. I personally think the same way. When you have a flat deck, it just kills test cricket more than anything else.
Yeah,
Now
I
we are in a generation, or we are in an
This
era where
wasn't this like a test match you would see in 2012, 2011? It took
it
us a
was.
long time back. And
Yes,
yeah,
yes. This is more like a 2005, 2013 era kind of a test match where
correct.
you
Yeah,
saw 700 runs, 600 runs. You saw a lot of draws as well during that era. People were
correct. Yeah.
happy to take draws. Draws was a very good result. But now, because of WTC, because of various other factors, draws cannot be afforded by teams, and teams do not want to play for draws. I think mentality also have changed over a period of time. Indian team,
Yeah.
especially under Virat Kohli, was very clear that they want to go for win. That's what I'm trying to make a point over here as to when we try to produce more result oriented wickets. I think people also will be more hooked onto it. Now, if we talk barring this day on day 4, because Virat Kohli was batting, other than every day the crowd turnout was very minimal. People knew who's going to come in that heat and want to sit and watch 100 overs being played out where there's going to be nothing, literally nothing. Bowlers are just bowling machines on the pitch. And tomorrow as well, I don't think anything drastic is going to change on the pitch unless
Yeah.
Australia decides to choke.
I think we heard Aksar say at the end of day 4 as well, wasn't it, in his press match to Harsha Bhogle, where he said that if a batter settles down, if he plays 20, 30 deliveries, then he doesn't have to worry about anything. There are no demons on this pitch. He said there's some bounce coming out of their footmarks, but we saw today's pitch, the footmarks really was not even, it was not even that prominent. That's where I felt this pitch is somewhere, minus T3 of what a Delhi pitch was, where
Yeah.
I think 3 more days of play on this pitch and you will get to the Delhi pitch on day 1.
I think so. I personally, think, but I still think this could have been a good pitch for a 10-day game. Remember the olden period?
I mean, if you, for those of you who don't know, cricket once upon a time did not have an over mark. It was as long as you could bat, 2 innings,
It was
4 innings.
timeless test. It was timeless test. There was a
Yeah.
test match between England and South Africa, which was played in 1930s, where England were chasing 656, and England got to 636 on the 10th day, and they had to stop because the ship was leaving in the evening. So, or else I would have gone on as well. All they would have, they had to wait another 1 month for that
It's
game.
also called playing for the win, isn't it?
Yeah, technically yes, but then it was 8 ball overs. You had timeless test
Yeah.
matches, and I personally think this is a good wicket for a 10-day test match or a 15-day test match. On day 15, it'll turn like
Yeah.
indoor.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I really, I would still say, while I wasn't a big fan of the test matches that happened before, I feel an ideal test match goes on till the fourth day or till either till the fourth day. You have at least one of the three results out of the way, where you feel by the fourth day, and I just don't mean in this fashion where you now feel like Australia are out, but I rather feel in a more exciting manner. Like for example, the Headingley test match, Australia
I
versus
mean,
England.
Jen, the
I
test match is
feel
happening in New Zealand right now. Well, the test match between
absolutely.
England and New Zealand, that was the epic one. It was a good
Yeah,
bowling track on day one. It was a good bowling track. It got better on day two, day three for a little bit for batting. And day four, day five, again, it got better for bowling. So I think
yeah,
that is the most exact balance what we need, where you get fast
absolutely.
bowlers also involved, where you get batters also involved, then you get spinners involved on the last day. But in India, unfortunately, you can't produce such good pace bowling wickets because of the condition, because of the heat, because of various other factors. That's why I think India, you can never produce the most ideal test wicket, and there's no rule book as to this is the most ideal test wicket as well. So ICC is definitely not going to give us good rating ever because it's so tough to do it. Because nowadays, even
Yeah, but
flat
I
deck,
still feel compared to the indoor one, this pitch doesn't deserve a demerit point as such because I still feel, I mean, maybe there'll be people who will go against what I'm saying, and maybe if there's already been comparisons drawn, I know in the on cricket Twitter as well, but I still feel it is a lot better than what we saw in Pakistan. Maybe this is the Indian in me speaking. Because on day four, you still felt it was not easier, it was easy to bat
yeah,
as day three till day three. I
yeah,
still feel, I said this earlier as well on day one's test match that if on day three it starts spinning, I would
yeah.
still rate this pitch better. I feel if on a typical Indian track, if it starts spinning on day three, where it becomes
Now,
difficult to
now,
score.
now, what are the odds that tomorrow morning it starts spinning? Until unless someone just goes and digs a hole there, it's not going to spin, dude. It's definitely not
It's
going to
not.
spin.
It's not.
Even
That's
the
what I
foot
felt,
marks
right?
are
I just
so.
felt
I mean, you don't
today's
even see
pitch.
proper foot marks there. That's what's surprising me. It's
I
so
think
flat. Even foot marks are so flat.
today's pitch should have been the pitch on day three. Then it would have been a better pitch. But also having said that, I think you have to also consider the fact that there weren't many fast bowlers bowling. I mean, how many did this fast bowlers ball? I think
I think
for
40 overs, 45 overs from Australia, I
yeah, I
think.
think everyone put together probably Stark is ball 22.
Uh,
Um,
Cam Green has ball
Gill is ball
20.
18. That's 40. Then I think Umesh Yadav
Shami,
and Mohammad Shami have put together ball somewhere close to 50. So 80 overs of fast bowling, where two teams which have played more than 400 overs. So I think in that sense, you're what 1/8 of the total bowlers. I think it's also because of the lack of fast bowlers that are not creating that rough outside the off stump or
it
outside the
is
leg
there.
stump as
It
well.
is definitely there. It's definitely there. I think Teju's point, we'll take it up. I think it's time that we talk about Virat Kohli because
Yeah,
I think that is the highlight of the day, right? The 100.
yeah.
Finally, the 100, as everybody wanted it for what? Ages now, 1,200. I think we've already had a comment on that which says, where is the comment? I'll just take it up. Yeah,
I think
1,205 felt like a
1,204.
lifetime.
Today's the fifth day. Yeah,
Yes, 1,205 days felt like a lifetime. It definitely did for a lot of
yeah.
us. But I think Khawaja's innings was outstanding. I mean, there is no denying it. Virat Kohli's innings was even more outstanding because of the fact that he curbed a lot of his instincts to play this innings. It was not
Absolutely.
a
He
typical,
played Jara today.
yeah, it was not typical Virat Kohli innings, right? He curbed a lot. He was very restrictive in terms of the
Well,
shot.
that's what I
He
really
didn't
felt
put
bad
them
with
in.
Sable. I'm so sorry I'm cutting you off there, but
Yeah, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
that's what I felt really bad as well. Where Virat Kohli was really ready, set. You saw Ashwin throw his wicket away. You saw Umesh Yadav throw his wicket away. Mohammad Shami as well. I wouldn't blame Mohammad Shami as much as the other two. Also, maybe if Shreyas Iyer was there, you would have seen Virat Kohli score a 200 today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, he was sick as well, as per
Yeah,
what Anushka Sharma had put out on Instagram, and he was coughing throughout that innings as well. If you had heard from the stump mic, so it was a well determined innings. I mean, it's something which he will definitely remember for a long time because he had to
yeah,
curb a lot of his instincts. I know it was an easier pitch compared to whatever he has had throughout the series, and that's where I feel if India had wickets like what India had during 2005, 2013, 14. I think
yeah.
Virat Kohli would have had at least 10 more hundreds to his kitty than what he has. And maybe Rahane, Pujara, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul put together would have at least had 30 more hundreds, 30 more hundreds in totality. So these kind of pitches have definitely not helped Indian batters to also boss around like what we used to do in 2000s, 90s, where we should say, oh, Indian batters are great players of spin. I bet you Indian former greats never had to face spin in these kind of challenging conditions because
Yeah,
the ball
absolutely.
now in this era is turning a lot more than what it used to turn previously, and they used to play well there. Now, if you tell me now, Indian boy batters had to face a lot more tougher tests with spin because the conditions are much harder, Jaren.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also got to do with what you already mentioned about WTC final as well. Also, there's been a change, isn't it, in the way Test cricket has been played. If you really see, Test cricket has become more result oriented. Before, Test cricket was all about, I really don't know when before Test cricket was really all about going out there for 5 days. If you guys have watched Test cricket like I have, or at least most of you who have followed Test cricket ardently, will say the same thing that it's always been this case where commentators would have conversations on their playing career, and Sunil Gavaskar would finish his whole career in 5 days, and you wouldn't still get a result. So that's where Test cricket has evolved a lot. You also, I think there's a lot to it because of T20 cricket. The players' instincts have changed. It's to attack the bowlers more often than not, and I feel in cricket there's been a transition as well. The batters once upon a time their role was to really defend, construct a score. Now it's and the bowlers were the ones who used to attack. But now it's changed around. It's the bowlers who defend a lot more. You see that in T20 cricket with the advent of Yorkers, slower deliveries, spinners bowling Yorkers, and spinners bowling faster, and fast bowlers bowling slower. So that's where you feel that's where you also feel like India are India are not just India. I think Test cricket has changed overall, and that's where it's not easier to score runs. I know Gautam Gambhir will come out and say that it was much easier, maybe, but you have to also consider in Test cricket it's become a lot different. Test cricket balls have also had extra lacquer ever since 2019. By the way, in 2020 or so, they've started adding extra lacquer on in Kookaburra, and it's I wouldn't say exactly like Duke, but the extra lacquer has made it difficult to face Kookaburra or SG as well.
Hmm.
So that's also a scenario where you have to consider. I mean, I know other players have had great. Had great careers while Virat Kohli struggled, but that's also got to do with the rule of averages, because Virat was having such tremendous runs so far. It was bound to happen that he'll have a tough period for some time, and that's all right. I think now it's beyond him, and now he's really looking to go back to where he was before that dip in form.
I mean, that's a very good way to put it as well because now we know one thing about Virat Kohli that he likes to build on these kind of innings. Once he sniffs blood, he definitely imposes authority, just carries on. And today was a clear example. He got that first 100 and second 100. He was very close to getting that second 100 as well. He was very quick there. You don't even realize by the time he almost reaches 190, 180 without even you realizing it. That's a hallmark of Virat Kohli. Now, WTC final is almost there, as Kapil has already spoken about the preparation. I think this is going to give Virat Kohli a lot more confidence now leading into WTC final if India qualifies. That's of course there because it's still not sure. I think we still have to wait and watch what happens Sri Lanka versus New Zealand and tomorrow's day's play as well. But for Virat Kohli personally as well, I think now he's going to be in a better space now leading into the IPL, leading into the World Cup this year. That the gorilla which was off is finally off his back because that was definitely taunting him for a long period of time. He did score the white ball hundreds. He did score the runs in the white ball. But then scoring in the test format, we all were talking about how good he was looking throughout the series. He was unlucky to get dismissed in Delhi. Then he was looking very good in indoor once again. Then it was a very tough pitch to bat there, and he got a bad shot. He played a bad shot there in the second innings. And
Yeah.
now, finally, that he has got an opportunity in a good deck, he will capitalize.
and we're very happy about the fact that there was no chance. It was not a chancy innings. It was just purely no opportunities given whatsoever for Australia. He
Yeah.
just shut them out. There was no way out to do anything at all, and that's why you have to really give credit to Virat Kohli as well. And I think it is just incredible, right? The way he's played, and the moment that it came in, right? I think if not for Virat Kohli's innings, but Shubman Gill did a great job. We have to talk about Shubman Gill, but then what he essentially did is what Virat Kohli has been doing for India for a long time in Test cricket. He held the middle order together. It's been so long that the middle order has been the one who's been, I think with Shreyas Iyer and Rishabh Pant being there, they were the ones who were carrying the most weight. But now with Virat Kohli also joining the party, you would really think that India, if they could get through, will feel confident when it comes to WTC. I know Rishabh Pant won't be there, unfortunately, but even I was very impressed with
You
KS Bharat
reckon?
as well.
You
So
reckon that now there's a lot of spotlight on Kona Bharat in terms of this batting and whatnot. You reckon that really opens up an opportunity for KL Rahul to be in the middle order just as a batter come keeper for the WTC final?
nah, man, I don't think so. KL Rahul has the keeping to really, be a test wicket keeper because, for instance, just look at what happened today. KS Bharat missed a very good chance, not a very good chance, a very difficult chance of Matt Kuhneman, and that one could have really opened a door for India, right? Because Australian batters were batting for so long. Oh, by the way, I just there's also news from the Australian side as well. Usman Khawaja has also coped an injury. 2 days. That's the reason why he did not come out to bat. That's the reason why they had
Yep.
sent Matt Kuhneman. So he might not play tomorrow as well because Australia might feel we need Usman Khawaja for the WTC final. They are set. They are in the WTC final. If I'm not wrong, they're also having the Ashes. If I'm not wrong, Emil, they're also having
That's
the Ashes.
after the WTC final, of
That's after
course.
the WTC, but you don't want to aggravate probably your number one batter now at this point in time,
Yeah.
and he might not come out to play unless the Australians feel there's just a chance of a victory, and I don't see that happening because I think they will believe that they fought, and this I think Australians will remember this tour for a long time. But having said that, if Matt Kuhneman's wicket had gone right at that moment, for at least one over of Mohammad Shami, they would have to send Manas Labuschagne or probably another spinner or Mitchell Stark probably. So I felt again that's a very difficult chance because it deviated a lot and Bharat was standing a lot closer. But I don't think KL Rahul can do that in any form in a format where red ball is being used. So I feel that's going to cost India in and that's a gamble as well. While I know Bharat is probably not going to score any runs, but so is KL. So you don't know if KL is going to score runs at all. So I feel at
Mm.
this point in time, maybe KL should go back to domestic circuit, play county cricket, get some
Yeah.
confidence in the white red ball format. I still think he can do a decent job in white ball, but in terms of red ball, I
I
feel
think this one day series against Australia is going to be very crucial for him. But we'll talk
yeah.
about him later on. I think this is a very valid question, which I'll take before I'll just take the prior comments as well. So Shinwari says talk about PSL pitches. I'd rather not talk about it because it's just roads, it's just highways there. But some entertaining cricket though, nonetheless.
Yeah,
262 and
absolutely.
253. I mean, that is certainly very good. And Peshawar Zalmi unable to defend even after scoring 200s on very high scores. I think it's just entertaining cricket with small boundaries, something very similar to what we have in WPL. So it's it's very comparable at this point. So that's what I will leave it there. Ashwin is better than Lion. I don't know,
I think it's
man.
not easy to say that, Rashid. Here's the reason why, right? Ashwin has grown up in Indian wickets. Ashwin has grown up with a lot of spin knowledge as well, spin related knowledge as well. I think how many off spinners did Ashwin have to fight to come to the top level? And now compare that to how many off spinners did Nathan Lyon have to fight to come to the top level. So in terms
Yeah,
of his development, Nathan Lyon would have had to struggle a lot more in terms of development, in terms of finding that knowledge, that spin related knowledge. While Australia has started doing a lot of things in terms of this. I think it was Cameron Green who went out to say that MRF tours to India has really helped him bat in India, and that's something that is very exciting as well. I think if I'm not wrong, MRF does. What do you say? Cross tours where they're also making Indian players tour in Australia, if I'm not wrong. And in that scenario, now what Nathan Lyon didn't have is what today's off spinners have, right? There's also, I think, I think it's called the Spinners Lab or something like that. It's a
yeah,
ground in Australia which Australian Cricket Association has dug up, and it's a terrible pitch. And they've also come up with something. There's also a mat which they've brought out. So now Australian players are actually exposed to a lot of things to try and emulate the conditions in Asia. But I think Nathan Lyon has never had to really, never really had any of that. And before Nathan Lyon, if you look at the Australian spinners, it's only Shane Warne who's done anything. And Shane Warne was a natural, right? Nathan Lyon is someone, if you go through his career, he's struggled a lot to come to reach where he is. Having said that, also Nathan Lyon is very, very effective in places that Ashwin has not been, like New
Yeah,
Zealand,
yeah,
for instance, England, for instance.
yeah.
So that's where you have to give credit to Nathan Lyon. And
I think
as
Nathan Line, it's tough to compare them both as well because Nathan
yeah,
Line is more of a orthodox off spinner, and Ashwin has different elements which are more limited over format influenced. For
yeah,
example, Karen Ball, for example, the leg spinner, the googly. I mean, he does not use the leg spinner in the test format, but still,
thank
Ashwin
God.
is a more well-round bowler to ball in all formats
Yeah,
in comparison
absolutely.
with Nathan Line, and maybe Ashwin can make things happen on tracks where you feel nothing is happening. For example, the first innings picking up 6 wickets was a clear example of how Ashwin's class is on flatter decks, where none of the
Correct.
bowlers are unable to pick up wickets. Ashwin, with limited assistance, can really run through a side. So that is where Ashwin really stands out. And when you talk about Leighton Line, he's become the highest wicket taker by an overseas bowler in India. So that is a fantastic feat to pick up 55 wickets in India for any touring bowler to do that. Now that's what you talk about class. That's what you talk about the kind of stature which this lad has brought into Australian team, and he's way too good. He's got just one ball. He keeps waiting his pace and length, and he traps the batters. It is not mystery. It is nothing out of the blue. It's just typical off spinners and just troubling the batters with just being orthodox. So that's the class of Nathan Lyon. It's tough to compare them both. Maybe Ashwin is a well-rounded cricketer because Ashwin has a little bit of batting as well. So maybe that's where
Yeah.
you can give Ashwin that slight bit of edge. Australia will look to attack. I'm not sure about how it is going to go. India
Yeah,
will have
I don't
to.
think Australia is going to attack at all, Shafiqullah, because they don't want to lose this test match. And from here, I really don't think England would have really attacked.
Yeah,
Although you have to say that England would find themselves in this position if England had scored 480 runs, it would be
yeah,
by the end of what do you say, the first session on second day. But still, I still feel if it was this situation, I think even Brendan McCullum, if he was the coach of Australia, would be telling the lads to just buckle up and defend. If you have to, make sure you don't lose your wickets. If
yeah,
India has to bat, if India does bat, then that's where India might look to attack. So
yeah, absolutely.
I
I
don't
think
think
it's going to be
Australia.
the other way around. India will be looking to attack as India need to attack to be extra in tomorrow morning. I mean, in terms of field settings and everything, yes, India will have to be. India will have to get Kunaman out first, then
I think
get.
at least the first one session India will attack, and if they feel like Australia is getting away with it, then they'll start really,
Yeah,
playing again negative cricket.
absolutely. I think this way we'll take Teju's question. I mean, it's very pertinent to take that question primarily because
This is Abel's
I
favorite
think
topic to talk about.
yes, it is because I've been talking about it for a while now. Everybody who's been going to NCA has been getting has been having relapse injuries. Everybody, I'm just talking from 2016. I think it was Bhuvneshwar Kumar who started off. When Bhuvneshwar Kumar first had that injury, he was sent to NCA. Then he had a long injury layoff, where now, because of which his test career is diminished. Radhiman Saha had a very similar incident way back in 2016-17 as well. Now talking about Jasprit Bumrah, talking about a lot of other fast bowlers, Prasidh Krishna, Shreyas Iyer to that list. I think the list is getting very long, and this is high time that the staff at NCA takes accountability, or there's a lot more transparency as to what is happening in NCA. Is it just rehab, or what kind of rehab? Is it the plan? Is it rightly set, or are the reports being sent to Team India rightly as to this player is completely recovered? Is there a clear miscommunication between team management and NCA as are the team management rushing the players' recovery? So these are questions which has to be answered. Because if NCA is the wrong people over there, I think everybody in NCA deserves to be held accountable for it. I don't know how, but they still have to be held accountable because it's a long time thing which has been happening now. It's not something which has happened for the first time. A lot of players have suffered the brunt of it, and now Bumrah has gone to New Zealand to uh, get himself a
Yeah,
surgery, and so
yeah, yeah.
that's how bad
Yeah,
it is.
I think just to I mean let you know about Bumrah. So the surgeon that Bumrah has gone to is also the surgeon that treated Jofra Archer, and his
Shane,
bowling coach in
and Shane Bond as well, right?
and Shane Bond as well. So it actually started with Shane Bond, if I'm not wrong. It's a different doctor, but the same hospital.
Yeah.
They had come with an back then when Shane Bond was playing. They'd come with an experimental procedure to repair the spine of an athlete, and Shane Bond tried it. Jofra Archer, who's by the way bowling really well after a comeback. Good news for Mumbai Indians fans who will be missing Bumrah and Jai Richardson as well. But at least for Jofra Archer to bowl well, it's a good news for England fans and for Mumbai Indians fans. But having said that, that's a good news, you would say, because he's in safe hands. At least from the track record that MC has had, compared to that, the track record that I still can't remember the doctor's name, but the particular doctors had, he's had much better track record, and I think that's a good news for Indian fans. I still feel, in terms of, because again this is an experimental procedure still, but you can hope that Bumrah will follow suit of someone like Jofra Archer.
Absolutely, and that's one good thing about it. But we do not know when Bumrah will be back because it just looks like it's going to be a long-term injury layoff. Let's hope the World Cup is the target for Bumrah. We've been keeping a lot of targets now. It's just not happened. We've kept last T20 World Cup, or I think we've kept a Australian series. Then he played a match for India where it just got worse. It was a bad
Yeah,
move from India to get him in there. I think that's where it just went wrong. I do not know who forced that. Now, looking back at things, I think person who forced it or the wrong reports given to Team India, that person should be held accountable because that's something which possibly could have aggravated Bumrah's injury. Now looking back in
yeah,
hindsight as well, Rob T has a thing to say about Australia. I think India will sweep the floor with Australia or Jadeja will spin a web. Priyanka, which team's kit are you wearing even? It's Bengaluru FC, the local club from India, in Bangalore, of course, who plays in the ISL. Uh, After that, Surgeon Tunava Bond career got extended till 2000. Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing
correct.
which we need to keep in mind because Shane Bond had a long injury list throughout his career, and that particular surgery definitely helped him to recuperate out of it and actually battle out a better career towards the latter half. Now for Bumrah as well, now he's 29. Um, hopefully next 6 years are going to be very crucial for Bumrah as well. So let's just hope this really helps him to come back because he's too good a baller to be missing out for this long. It's almost going to
Yeah,
be a year. He's going to be missing out till June, July. So I do not know. It just started off as a small injury. It just got worse, and worse. Because remember in 2020 as well, I think it was 2019, right after the 50 over World Cup, where he was playing the Test match in West Indies, where he had a very similar stress fracture in his back. And then he had to undergo a long relay process. Then he came back in 2020. He just did not look in good rhythm. Then the COVID, of course, happened. Then again, it took a while for Bumrah to come back into form. So we are really hoping that Bumrah does not take a lot of time. Even if he comes back and gets set into the system pretty quickly and gets running, because this year is very important for India in a lot of aspects.
yeah, absolutely. It's also going to be interesting to see how, it's these are the kind of injuries that really can also destroy a player's career. It's been a long time that Bumrah has been off, and again, as I said, I mean, it's great to see that Jofra Archer is back. But we did raise the same concerns when it came to Jofra Archer that after such an injury, long injury relay, you don't know how a bowler comes back. It really affects a bowler. I think it affects a bowler a lot more than sometimes it affects the batter
Yeah,
because in
yeah,
terms of their use of body, you would say the bowler uses his body a lot more
mm,
in every delivery that he balls. So,
yeah,
especially being a fast bowler, so really hope a speedy recovery for him and especially Shreyas Iyer as well, who's had a recurring back injury, which is not a good news for Indian team in
yeah.
general. Looking at
I
how
mean,
good
not
he's
even
been.
for Kolkata Knight Riders fans as well. Now,
Absolutely, yeah. I
for
think he's
India,
almost slated
I
to
mean,
miss
this
the
season is
ODI.
done for him. He might miss the one day series, but for KKR fans, it doesn't look good.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I wish
Because
Sanjibani was here. I could have asked him a thing or two about what he reckon
maybe
about
that's the
that.
reason why Sandeepan is taking a break today, just to get his nerves out of the way for Kolkata Knight Riders' new captain. But
Yeah, Pant and Bumrah sadly missing that. With Pant, of course, it's been just unfortunate, but with
yeah,
Bumrah, I mean, it's a fast bowlers thing. You just have to accept it, and we should be blessed to say also that we have so much of resources that their misses have certainly not been so prominent for us. Well, we've been having so much of resources in the country, or so much of or plethora of talent within the team that they've been able to cover up their absences. For example, different players stepping up at different situations in the white ball format for Team India, finding out new ballers, Arshdeep stepping up, Umran Malik coming into the setup, Siraj stepping up. So these ballers have really covered Bumrah's miss, but Rishabh Pant, of course, in Test matches is a commodity which is very rare in the world. not even there,
Usually
not
against
just
ball
India.
spinners.
Yeah, so it's tough. It's tough to get a player like that, but I still think maybe. I'm not sure. I still think KL Rahul can be used as a wicketkeeper in WTC. We'll talk about it as we near WTC and when the squads are out and if India qualifies for the WTC. But before that, I think it's only correct if we talk about the Sri Lanka versus New Zealand Test match, which is ongoing at this point. And tomorrow is going to be an exciting day of cricket because Sri Lanka on the driver's seat, you can say so, because New Zealand will have to chase a lot of runs even now, and they only have 9 wickets in hand. But it's never easy to chase totals, especially in Test matches. You lose a couple of them, all of a sudden you're in so much of pressure.
It's going to be interesting. This test match has been such an amazing one for Sri Lanka, and I'm glad, because Sri Lanka has had such a difficult period of time, and I think the most biggest issue for them has been the fact that their senior players have not stepped up. But then this test match has been such a difference. It's been something that you would say that Sri Lankan fans were hoping would come true one day. All the senior players, every one of them stood up. Karna Ratne, Angelo Matthews has just had an amazing test match. I mean, second innings he got 100. The first innings again he did a great job by playing at 47 of 98.
Yeah,
So it was not even an easy wicket to bat on. It was a difficult one to bat on him to play in that fashion. Then again, Kusal Mendes once again had a very good first innings. 87 of 83. That was a attacking innings that really pushed them back. Karna Ratne again brilliant. 50 in the first innings. I know he did not do well in the second innings,
yeah,
but that was great for him. And Dinesh Chandimal, another player who's starting to look a lot better, you would say. Even against Australia, he had. I know there was that issue where Australia did, lose a lot of the reviews, and there was a clear spike where he should have been dismissed. But aside from that, to go on to score, if I'm not scored, he scored a double century in that test innings.
he scored a
So
double hundred.
yeah, is to score a double century in that fashion against Australia, where Australians felt like they had a chance, they had a reckoning in that series. So now it feels like Sri Lanka is somehow making a comeback in terms of being a dark horse at least. Even the T20 series, we felt like
Yeah,
they could have done a lot better. At least in Asia, they're improving, and this Test match
and
is
yeah,
a great news for them. But
it's pretty fascinating because
yeah,
a lot of people did not really give Sri Lanka a chance in New Zealand at
correct.
least. But
But
now
it's
that
also
they've shown
worrying,
it,
Abel, because it
India will be
seems
in so much of
New
pressure
Zealand
now.
is
India
good.
will have that behind their mind. At least by
Yeah,
tomorrow 11 a.m. before you go into the second session, you'll have a better picture as to where you stand and how
correct.
you want to go about it. Because India will have a better understanding. If Sri Lanka takes a 1-0 lead tomorrow morning, then things are going to get very interesting for Team India because then it's totally up on New Zealand or conditions draw, whatnot in the second test match. Because tomorrow, India have one thing to do, which is to make sure India enforce a result. If India can enforce a result, then nothing to worry about. Doesn't matter what happens in New Zealand or not. But tomorrow is going to be very exhilarating. Two test matches in two different parts of the world who are heading in two different directions. One test match is all three results possible. One test match, most likely it's going to be a draw or maybe an India win. So that's how it stands. That's probably it from us, Jaren. I think we've covered almost everything in terms of
Absolutely.
what's happening. We'll join you guys tomorrow to understand what happened throughout the test match, India's chances in the WTC final, and everything else as well. Thank you guys for joining. It was a pleasure taking all your questions and see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.
Bye bye, guys.